JL Warren, who's pretty awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Yes, it's awesome to be on the stage again. I'm JL Warren. I run the YouTube channel Bridge the Divide. I'm also an atheist activist. I focus on irrational beliefs, the irrational behaviors that follow, and how, with education, rationality, and reason, we can bridge the societal divides that are created by them. This is always a highlight of my month, the two times we get to do it. So I'm looking forward to the conversations we're going to have.
Then we've got TJump. TJump, you're pretty awesome as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Potato.
Awesome. And then, so I'm Taco. I put this together, but we're glad to have everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. I was talking to Moon Splitter Muhammad prior to the event. It sounded like he had a pretty interesting concept of God, and that it was definitely worth some time. So, tell us about your God concept and why it exists.
Yeah, so I think God, defined the way I define it, has to exist. God being the very foundation for reality. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Christian versions of the transcendental argument for God. Just to ask, because if you already know it, then I don't need to flesh it out that much. Do you guys know transcendental argument for God?
Why don't you give us your breakdown of the transcendental argument?
Yeah, sure. But anyway, I may as well do it because I have a different version from the Christian version anyway. But basically, for reality to exist, it needs a metaphysical basis. And why that would be is simply because all concepts and all objects are instantiated. And yet they have to be instantiated in reference to something. And whatever they're instantiated in reference to is going to have to transcend their own existence. And this would apply to the entire universe, basically. The entire universe, the entire realm, all of that would have to be instantiated from some fundamental something. Well, that fundamental something would have to have the capacity to encompass everything else. All concepts, all ontological primitives, all materiality, everything, including consciousness, all those things. And it would have to therefore have supra properties that would enable that to be the case.
While I would agree that there is probably some sort of fundamental thing out there that kind of that everything is grounded in, because we have no data beyond the Big Bang, as far as what we can determine where everything came from or what the state of everything was before then. And we have inadequate understanding of either physics or mathematics or mathematical functions in order to try to determine that. We just have extrapolations of what we currently know. How would you be able to determine or justify saying that is a God, that founding thing, without any evidence to support it?
Again, remember when I said that this thing, whatever it is, has to have the ability to encompass, and encompass specifically meaning have that content pre-existing within it in some manner.
Yeah, but that's an assumption. That's an assumption, though. You're assuming that it has to have that this one particular thing has to have all this stuff. When it simply it could just simply be another natural state of affairs.
I think you just mean
so you're jumping to the conclusion that it has to be a God and that it has to have these properties based upon what we can observe right now, based upon what is currently observable right now. So you're saying, where does this come from? It must come from this. How do you make the leap? And I agree that there's probably something fundamental, but we don't know what it is currently because we don't have enough data points. We don't have enough information to draw a conclusion. So the intellectually honest position is to say we don't know. But how do you make the leap to God with no data to support that conclusion?
So I think what is when I say it's metaphysically necessary, You're saying that it's an assertion or an assumption. This was the word you use. The way I am explaining this, or rather what I truly believe to be the case, is that this is not an assumption, but this is just metaphysically necessary, which is a higher level of reasoning than pure logic. This is metaphysically necessary. It's a more rigorous statement than even a logical statement.
Yeah, but you understand why it's referred to as metaphysically necessary, correct?
Yeah, of course, because it simply cannot be otherwise.
Well, it's because there's nothing beyond that that explains what we currently have. And so we have to go to a metaphysical reason. We have to go to metaphysics to explain what physics cannot currently explain. So we have everything we have. We have the universe, right? And we have everything that we can observe up to a particular point. There are things that we don't know that we may know in the future, but we don't currently know. And so you're making the jump that it has to be this metaphysical thing when in all actuality, because we have no information, we have no data, it literally could be just another state of affairs, like another state of physics or another state of reality that we just don't know yet and we can't access yet. So you're assuming it has to be a metaphysical thing because there's no physics to describe it currently. So how do you make that jump with intellectual honesty?
That's actually not what I'm saying. I'm saying that even what you're calling a physical explanation, right? So this is I'm not punting to the frontiers of our knowledge to say that, well, that thing which finally explains everything will be something we discover, which will be metaphysical. I'm saying even the stuff that we currently physical underpinning for everything. Because what you're calling physical is actually relying on metaphysics to do all of the explanatory work. Nothing would be understandable or intelligible within physics without a metaphysical underpinning.
Yes, it would. So we can have a perfectly fine like quantum field that can explain absolutely everything. Why do you think a quantum field would not be sufficient to explain everything we see?
All the mathematics and everything which is entailed by which gives rise to your quantum theory. It relies on
the quantum field. There's nothing that gives rise to the quantum field. It's necessary. It's uncreated. It explains everything we see. What about the quantum field can't explain everything?
Yes, if you're saying it explains everything, right? If you're not just saying, well, it just exists and that's it. But if it explains something, well, you're doing it in terms of mathematics, which is basically an
So why doesn't the quantum field explain everything?
Well, if you're just going to say the quantum field has no content to it, right? And it
has lots of content to it. You can look at the content in the field of physics. Quantum fields are literally the consensus in physics. Why does that, which has empirical evidence, is the current consensus of the most basic explanation of anything in the universe? Why is that a worse explanation than you making up a new invisible sky daddy?
I'm not. It doesn't have to be a sky daddy at all. I'm just saying, like even right now, whatever content you then have that you think explains the universe via quantum mechanics relies on metaphysics.
No, it is the metaphysics. So this is the most fundamental thing that makes up absolutely everything in the universe. Nothing can exist without this thing. It is metaphysically necessary. It is a metaphysically necessary quantum field. Why do we need some invisible sky daddy?
Because the quantum field is a very specific metaphysical statement of affairs.
No, it's not. It can be anything I want it to be. So that's not an argument. Why can't a metaphysically necessary quantum field explain everything?
A metaphysically necessary quantum field is just one specific set of equations in a specific system.
No. A quantum field is literally a physical thing. It's a literally existing thing. It is an ontology.
Yes, regardless of your belief of whether it's a physical thing or not, right? Let's even assume that it's a physical thing. It's still, its content is not of a self-evident nature, which would...
Well, that's epistemology. That's literally irrelevant. It's literally irrelevant. So there's no such thing as a self-evident truth in that thing. That's just what we appear to be the case. So God isn't self-evidently true at all. God is something that we know is not true. It's garbage. So empirical things that have been demonstrated, like quantum fields, are more likely to be true. Things we've demonstrated are not imaginary. You're just saying there's this imaginary sky daddy that you imagine to be true, and it seems self-evidently imagined to be true by you.
I don't think I've even invoked a sky daddy so far. So
well, no, Moonsplitter. You just said that the quantum field is it's not that it's self-evident. It's there. It's the most fundamental thing. That's what TJump's trying to describe. What you basically said is that it's not self-evident, and it is because it is the most fundamental thing of everything. It is the most fundamental thing.
No, so
but you said that God was self-evident, and I can already disprove that now because it is not self-evident to me.
Okay. So neither is the quantum field self-evident to me.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I'm not using that rationale because it's asinine. So, but what I am going to say is that like self-evident means that you would never have to even reason towards it. The axioms of logic are self-evident because there's no further reasoning that needs. There's no other possibility of axioms that you could choose.
Well, actually, yes, there is. So there is no such thing as self-evident there, and God isn't self-evident, and it doesn't matter. But more importantly, wait, it doesn't matter if something is. Hold up, stop. It doesn't matter if stop. Can you mute him for a second so I can finish my sentence? So it doesn't matter if something is self-evident. That's not an argument for anything. It makes no difference. It's not. It doesn't mean it exists.
He interrupted me. He interrupted me. I know he's a big celebrity and all that, but like
yeah, because I was debunking your point and you haven't addressed the point.
Yeah. So anyway,
self-evident is not evidence.
Don't let that happen again, right? Because I'm not going to take part in a discussion which has that weird power dynamic where someone can interrupt me and then ask me.
Man, come on, just calm down.
Yeah, this is the last bit of meta that I'll do. I'm just saying that. It's the last bit of meta I'll do, but I'm just saying that. Anyway, so self-evident again is something which you can not reason to. It's something which you just accept to be true. So if you have this quantum theory which relies on the logical axioms,
self-evident literally doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
But you just pull it does matter, because if you just pull these axioms, which are the very underpinning at a mathematical level of your quantum theory, then there's nothing self-evident about the theory.
No, I've already debunked your dumbassness. Self-evident isn't evidence. It doesn't matter if something is self-evident. Secondly, God isn't self-evident. Logic isn't self-evident. None of those things are self-evident.
If you're going to make that claim, then you have no basis for your entire theory.
Yes, I do. It's called science. So you don't need anything to be self-evident. Self-evident is epistemology. It has nothing to do with ontology. So things can ontologically stop talking. Things can ontologically exist if you don't know they exist. The fundamental nature of reality, whatever it may not be self-evident to you because of your little tiny brain. It doesn't matter if something is self-evident to you in your little tiny brain. Reality does not give a shit.
Sure, no problem with that, right? But then if you're saying that a quantum field is self-evident, which you claimed earlier.
No, it's not. I didn't claim it was self-evident. I don't care about self-evident.
Yes, you did. Little boy, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I said it was metaphysically necessary. I didn't say it was self-evident.
Okay. We're not going to call the guest little boy. Just calm down, stop interrupting, and have a conversation. I'm unmuting you now. I'll pull him back in. Yeah.
All right.
I'm okay with him insulting me.
Do you have a recording of this? Do you have a recording of this?
What?
I do.
Do you have a recording of this? Well, he said self-evident. Let the record show. Because he was reasoning by the.
No, I think that was JL.
That may have been me. Moon. That may have been me, and I may have misspoken. So
I did not.
You can check it back. If not, I'll eat my shots on camera.
I'll up for that back.
Just move forward.
Just move forward on it, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying if nothing is self-evident, right, then you will never be able to even form this quantum theory, which so-called explains everything, or whatever.
No, I've already debunked that.
Theory doesn't matter.
Like, it doesn't matter if something is self-evident or not. That literally is irrelevant to ontology. Self-evidence is epistemology. Ontology is what exists. There can be a metaphysically necessary being who is not self-evident. There's no logical contradiction there. Your argument is debunked.
Sure, that is completely fine. However, the whole argument, right, thus far has been that you believe that there is a possible physical state of affairs which could explain everything. Same thing with JL1. He believes at the end of it, right? I'm talking about multiple people right now. So the abstract between two different people. Both of you seem to have the belief. Let me ask you straight up then. Do you believe that there could be a physical state of affairs which explains all of reality?
A state of affairs just describes a state in time. That's irrelevant. There can be a physical thing which can exist outside of space-time and be outside of a state of affairs. Yes, that can explain everything.
State of affairs doesn't just mean a physical state.
Yes, it does.
Metaphysical state of affairs.
There's no such thing.
Is the word.
So again, you've given no reason to think that you need a Sky Daddy.
I'm gonna rephrase. Is there a physical system, right,
Yes.
ontologically existing physical system that
Yes.
could explain all of reality.
Yes.
Yes. And what does explain mean?
What does it means? It grounds, acts as the foundation, and created literally everything else that exists.
And is explanation epistemological or ontological?
Ontological. So ontologically, it is the grounds that causes everything else. It's not an epistemic explanation. It's an ontological explanation.
Explain to me. Go ahead and explain to me how an explanation cannot be epistemological. Go ahead.
Explain is just a word to evoke the fact that this pre-existing thing caused the other things. We just use the word explain to express that. It's an ontological fact that this existing thing caused those other things. That's all ontology. It didn't epistemologically cause other things.
Other guests, do you want to have a crack at this? Other guests, do you think that something can be explained without reference to epistemology?
I'm in agreement with the idea that you have to ground your epistemology in metaphysics.
Yeah. So this TJump believes right now. So because we need to create a separation here, I don't want to argue against everyone because this is ludicrous that you could have an explanation which is ontological without a reference to epistemology.
Gravity explains why things fall. Gravity has no consciousness. You're an idiot.
How does gravity explain it without epistemology?
There is a phenomenon.
Epistemology necessarily.
No, oh my God, how are you this dumb? Like, explanation does not mean epistemology. Explanation means the cause.
Cause is different from explain.
No, it's not. The explanation why something happens is its cause. Why are Muslims just so deluded on this? Like,
I don't want to tell you, cause is different from explain. I mean, this is just like basic stuff at this point.
Because is the explanation. God, why you still haven't given any argument?
Look, the cause is the referent of the explanation. That's all.
Yes, an explanation.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you split that hair. It needed to be split.
No, it's not splitting a hair because he believes that you can have an explanation without epistemology, which is ludicrous. And I think
no, you can.
Okay, so what is your epistemology? All right, Moon Splitter, what's your epistemology grounded on?
Yeah, so forget that. That's not important.
That's very important.
That's not important, really? You can just pull epistemology out of thin air?
It's not important.
What's it grounded off of?
Wait 1 second, chill out.
We're getting down to brass tacks. We're getting down to foundational.
Yeah, we will, and I will talk about it. We will, and I will talk about it.
Let's not dance around that point. Let's just get to that point.
That's the question at hand.
Moderator, we're on a very specific point right now, and I'll elucidate that point. The point is, TJump believes that you can have an explanation without epistemology. I just want to ask everyone.
Yeah, and that crushes your point. Can you bring up an argument for God now?
So you cannot have. Okay, so now I'll tell you. You cannot have an explanation without epistemology.
No, yes, you can. I just explained how you can. Can you get back to your argument now?
You cannot have an explanation without epistemology because explanation.
Can we get back to your argument now? I don't want to explain basic philosophy to you that you're ignorant of. Just bring up your argument for God.
Basic philosophy to you. Do you literally?
No. I've already crushed you on this. Go back to your argument.
I'm so glad that we have the.
Okay, come on, guys.
Back to your argument.
Have a conversation.
All right, Moon Splitter. If you can
don't waste time on this. This is
the point. You guys are talking past each other on Moon Splitter, and if you can just answer this question, you're gonna basically just win the debate. So you're thinking you need epistemology before you can have ontology. Well, what is your epistemology grounded on?
I did not say that. I said you cannot have an explanation without epistemology.
Yes, you can. Again, this is just a waste of time. Go back to your argument. This does not help you. It just shows that you're ignorant to philosophy.
No, you can't. Because if we can't
Can you just mute him? Mute him until he goes back to his argument. Like, go back to the argument for God. Stop wasting my time on your wrong philosophy.
That is the argument.
That's not an argument. How is that an argument?
This is where the argument is led over the course of this discussion.
Wait, explain that.
Can't understand. Let me ask Jack Burton.
What is the argument?
Jack Burton, can you have an explanation without epistemology? Jack Burton, can you have an explanation without epistemology?
If you're going to ground your epistemology, it's going to be off an ontology. It's going to be off metaphysics. At least that's how.
It's a yes or no question. Can you have an explanation without an epistemology?
Yes, but you're skipping a step. You're going to end up begging a question.
Exactly. And J.L. Warren, can you have an explanation without epistemology?
I'm more interested in what you're grounding your epistemology in. We're past that point.
Why can't anyone answer the simple yes or no question?
The answer is yes.
Moon, be quiet. The reason is because we are past this point. Jack and TJump have sufficiently explained why you're wrong on this. And now we want to know what you ground your epistemology in.
But these guys don't understand. Taco, let me ask you. Let's see how good you are. Like,
Can
do you think you can have
you're skipping the point?
Can you have an explanation?
Either answer the question or we're going to move on.
Yeah, you can move on. That's fine because you guys don't understand that you cannot have an explanation with epistemology. Like, where can we go further from there?
Misrepresenting what I said.
Where can we go further from there? Like, on record,
I'm trying to explain to you. We can go further than that.
I didn't interrupt you. I didn't interrupt you. When you said shut up when you were talking, I shut up. So let me just say, on the record, boys, we have right here 3 of the 3 most prominent.
You've already said this. You're repeating yourself. We've already debunked you.
You said you were going to skip the meta, so let's just get...
Moon
Splitter. You said you were going to skip the meta, so skip the meta and just tell us what your epistemology is grounded on.
I want to recap the argument here. The argument here is he said only a metaphysically necessary God can explain everything. I said, nope, we can explain it with the quantum field. A quantum field can ontologically be the explanation for everything we see. You don't need a mind for any of that. So the quantum field is equally as plausible to explain everything. And then he's going off on this silly semantic garbage which has nothing to do to refute the argument. So I've debunked his nonsense, and he's done nothing except bring up semantics, which waste time.
I'll recap the argument accurately, right? So TJump believes that you can have a physical quantum field.
Okay, mute him, get rid of him, because I've already, that's not even the argument. The argument was quantum fields can ground everything.
A physical quantum field which can explain all of reality.
Yes, it can.
But without epistemology. But without epistemology.
Moon, I'm down for a second. So they're asking you a question, and you're going off on tangents. JL, you had a question for him. Go back to because that's where we were at. Because they all answered your question. So JL,
I want to know.
4 questions to 1. So JL, one-on-one.
Moon, I and Jack and TJump would like to know what you ground your epistemology in.
And I would like to have a yes or no answer to my question, which I've not yet got.
I've literally said yes like 20 times. You're like, can we get? Let's move on. Let's move on. This guy's done.
Jack Burden, not from Jack Burden to JL Warren because they don't want to seem foolish on a live Discord fucking.
Moon.
Chat.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes, but the answer is yes, but it's also irrelevant. That's why I'm not interested in that line of inquiry because it's just prevarication. I want to know what he grounds his epistemology in because he keeps dodging that. So
yeah, and we tried there. That wasn't okay. You should be more respectable to people.
Honestly, the answer was it's a bad question. So
well, I mean, what he was trying to get to was fine. Explanations require intelligence because explanations are a kind of thing we do in epistemology. Therefore, the foundational thing to explain anything would require a mind. That's the argument he was trying to get to, which is dumb because no, it doesn't. Like, yes, gravity explains why things fall. Does gravity have a mind? No, because the way we use the word explain does not require that the thing doing the cause has any mind in it. So his argument, which is a silly Muslim argument playing with words, which is they do that a lot, which is just so weird, was trying to get to the fact that you need a mind. He just never got there.
Just trying to figure out why you wanted to avoid the whole, epistemological grounding. I mean, that would have just won the debate right there.
Well, it's because he thought he had a good point that, a physical thing can't explain. You need a mind to explain it. So he was trying to latch onto that and focus on that because he thought it was a good point. It's such a dumb point and he just didn't realize it.
All right. So we had Nitrous here wanting to talk with the group. It looks like he unmuted.
Hello, guys.
It is your duty, now that you're up here, to convince us that a god or goddess or multiple gods or whatever exists.
Well, I came up here because TJump claimed something which I disagree with. And he claimed that there could be a metaphysically necessary state of affairs but it's not self-explanatory.
I didn't say any of those words. So I said there can be a metaphysically necessary physical thing. Yes, state of affairs are a single frame of reference in a time. So it wouldn't be a state of affairs. It'd be a physical system.
Yeah, but that's what I mean by state of affairs, right? We're speaking of reality. We're speaking of the quantum field here, right?
Yes. So there could be a metaphysically necessary quantum field. Yes.
Okay. So what do you define metaphysical necessity as?
Exists in all possible worlds.
Okay, something that cannot be conceived of non-existence, right?
No, you can conceive of anything as not existing. What you can conceive of doesn't matter. It just exists in all possible worlds.
No, but what I mean by not conceive of non-existence, I mean by that the entity you're speaking of the reality you're speaking of, in of itself cannot have a respect of non-existence. So
right, but that's different from conceivability. We can conceive of things not existing regardless of whether or not they can or cannot exist.
Well, I would say with a necessary entity, that is not the case. We cannot conceive it of non-existence.
Well, that's just wrong. We can prove that wrong.
Yeah, that's imposing a limitation on thinking, which
because
well, no, you can imagine a possible world with literal nothing, and that's a thing in philosophy. This is well understood in philosophy that nope, there's no such thing as a thing you can't imagine not existing.
No, but if you can conceive of non-existence, then of itself, it means that the entity or the reality you're speaking of, in of itself, has a possibility for it not to be, because conceivability means possibility.
Right. I agree with that. That's why there is no such thing that cannot be conceived to not exist. We can conceive of a world with literal nothing.
Sure, but that's why. So why would it be necessary then? So you're saying the entity you're speaking of, or the
because necessity means that it must exist, not that you must imagine it exists. So there could be a metaphysically necessary. One sec. There could be a metaphysically necessary entity that we just don't realize is metaphysically necessary. So metaphysically necessary means it must exist in all possible worlds. It does not mean we have to imagine it in all possible worlds.
No, but you said, look, you agree with me that conceivability implies possibility. So if you say that you can conceive it of non-existence, then it means that it possibly may not exist, which means that there is a possible world where the entity or reality you're speaking of does not exist.
So again, the fact that we can imagine it doesn't exist does not equate to there is a possibility it doesn't exist. Our ignorance.
But
wait. Hold up. You're confusing epistemology and ontology. Our epistemic means of imagining things gives us an idea of what is possible. Does that actually mean it's possible? No. It could be the case that there is a pineapple that exists in all possible worlds, and it's not logically possible for it to not exist in all possible worlds. We just don't know that yet. So we think pineapples are just physical things, but maybe there's some essence of pineapple that's metaphysically necessary. We don't know that, but the fact that it is metaphysically necessary is a question of ontology. It is. Regardless of whether or not we know it, regardless of whether or not we imagine it, doesn't matter. Our imagination is irrelevant.
But wait a minute. If you can conceive of non-existence, then you're not epistemically verified in believing that it is necessary. You'd have to give them...
Right, you're not justified in believing it's necessary. That's correct.
Yeah, exactly. So you cannot argue that there is an actual state of affairs that is metaphysically necessary, such as the quantum field. Because you can conceive it of non-existence, which means you're not epistemically verified, justified in believing that such.
Well, sort of that's correct. Sort of that's correct. So you're correct in stating that you're not justified in saying it's metaphysically necessary, just like no one is justified in saying God is metaphysically necessary. But in my argument, all I need to do is to have equal justification as the alternative. So if they say God is metaphysically necessary, and I can say the quantum field is metaphysically necessary, and we can both imagine them differently, well, then they're both equally qualified to be metaphysically necessary. Right. I agree that neither of them are justified. Neither of them are, like, I don't think metaphysically necessary is a logical term. I think it's garbage made up by a bunch of theists that has no plausibility in philosophy whatsoever. But if they think it's a rational criterion, then I can mirror that criterion and I can come up with an alternative that has equal qualifications to be metaphysically necessary, then that debunks their argument. So I agree, yeah, I don't think there actually is a metaphysically necessary quantum field. I'm just using that as a parody to show the theist argument is stupid.
Oh, so you're basically arguing that, well, you can say the same thing actually about a quantum field, for example.
Yes.
And you can just say, well, this is what grounds reality, right?
Right. So just like they're arbitrarily asserting God is metaphysically necessary, I can arbitrarily assert a quantum field is metaphysically necessary.
Sure, but would you agree with me that in both scenarios, when we speak about a personal sky father and a quantum field, that if one claims that either that entity or the quantum field is necessary, then that would be absurd.
Yes, I think both are absurd. I don't think metaphysically necessary. I don't think there is such a thing as a metaphysically necessary being.
Okay, sure. Well, that's all what I wanted to discuss.
Well, thank you for coming up. We do appreciate your time. We got a couple more people in queue. Do you guys have anything else you wanted to say there, or?
Potato.
Perfect. All right, so Clark, you're next in queue.
Pineapple
Pulling you
apple.
up right now. Welcome, Clark. Yeah, I guess go ahead and convince us that a God exists.
Hello, Clark.
This is the best argument I've ever heard in my entire life.
It is dead silent.
I really have nothing to counter this.
I suspect Clark may be having some challenges with audio with the microphone.
Yeah. He messaged
Maybe
me.
we'll try
rejoin.
again. Oh, sounds good. Who's next? It's Clark.
Yep. Audio issues abound.
Part 2.
Let's put Clark on hold and try the next person.
All right, Clark, I'm moving you back to the audience. Feel free to queue back up. Dole, I'm pulling you up.
Hey.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello. So I have a god divinity, if you will, to submit for examination. And I think you guys will end up agreeing with me that this actually at least exists. I don't know.
Could you say that again? You said what was the
utility.
first thing you said? You had a god something?
Or divinity, like whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So I suggest that we maybe could consider that reality or the universe or nature, whatever you want to call it, is a kind of gods. Like as in it's something we should live our life according to. So that could mean something like kind of a stoic belief that hey, like the universe works this way. You have the laws of physics and stuff like that. So we should like try and like live our life in accordance to those. So like for example, maybe an example is better for this. Like let's say like your day at work is going like really badly, right? And like you like some people like maybe like believers in like another type of god would say like, oh, curse God for like today, like he didn't like grant me a good work day or whatever. I would say maybe instead of doing that, you should like examine why like your day at work was like a very bad day. Maybe it's just not the type of work you like, so maybe you should look for another job, or maybe like there was something else that maybe is within your control to change.
So how does this differentiate reality, life, the universe, and everything from a conscious deity? And so to us, a god would have some kind of conscious state of affairs in it, that it can make decisions and do things like. And you're talking about how we ought to live by this. People are living without this ought. We don't have a choice when it comes to reality. We are part of it.
Yeah, I'm wondering how are you defining God in that argument you made? What is your definition of God?
God is nature. This is known as pantheism.
So it's like Spinoza's God?
Yes, exactly.
It's like an alias to nature. So nature, nobody's denying nature. The problem is that you're going to have to demonstrate that nature has some kind of conscious entity that could qualify as a god, and I'm having trouble with that part.
Well, I think he's not saying that there's consciousness. I think he's just saying naturalistic pantheism, the kind I use, that is just all of nature, and he's just calling that God. That's the most divine thing.
Yeah, but that's an alias, is what I specified. So that to me is just an alias. So if it's going to be more than just an alias, then there's going to have to be more to it than just nature itself.
I just think there's a lot of utility in this, like convince like religious people to step to something that is necessarily like is not a religious, but is some kind of religion that people can like look at and like use like in their daily life. I think this is like a good thing to like show to like classically religious people, instead of just being like, hey, there's no God,
I understand nature as being impartial to what we do in our daily lives. Are you saying that?
I agree.
Okay, so then.
So you cannot pray to this god, for example. Like that's something I explicitly say you should not do. Like you should not pray to this god because this like God doesn't care about you. Like there's no like consciousness in this god. You know, like it's
So
literally like Spinoza's god.
The other challenge you're going to have is to usurp the Mother Nature moniker then as well, in addition to it, because Mother Nature is more commonly referred to. I'm being a bit facetious here.
No, that's fine. Like what do you mean with usurp the moniker? I don't really get where the problem lies.
Well, because you're now saying it's nature is not feminine. You're saying it's masculine by calling it a god.
No, I don't think like nature has a gender.
Okay, so perhaps the word you want to use there would be deity, which would be fine.
Yeah, that's why I said divinity too. Like I used God because that's how like it's worded in the challenge of the like title of the channel, right? But like I prefer to use the word divinity.
Okay, yeah, actually, the advertising, if you look at it, talks about convince us a god or a goddess exists. It's just the label for the name of this stage is limited because Discord cuts it off if it's too long.
I'm just saying, like I used God because that was how it was worded by like the administrators, but like I would use divinity if I had a choice.
Okay, so divinity. So again, how do we verify that there is that nature is divine?
Because divinity is nature, like they're synonymous.
Divinity is nature? Hang on, I'm just going to bring up the definition of divine.
What do you mean by divine?
Divine, it says of, from, or like a god or deity of some sort, or providence of God. Those are the kinds of things that come up right away.
Pardon me.
Exactly. And nature is divinity, so that follows that definition.
Well, so I'm fine with your argument. It's just that you're changing definitions that people classically use very differently, and so I think it's useless. So I think that if I just said God is a potato and my potato exists, therefore God exists, that's perfectly a valid argument, but it's just changing the definitions of the words, and so no one cares. So if you're just saying nature exists and nature is the most fundamental thing, then yes, I agree, but that's not a god.
I'm saying more than that. Like I'm saying,
Tom
like
summarized what I'm getting at too. So thank you, Tom. Go ahead.
I'm saying like let's take like how nature is as our God, you know, like a lot of people like want to live in accordance to the Christian God, for example, if they're Christian, right? So they look at like the Bible or whatever, and they look at, hey, how is it told to us that this supposedly like divine being existed, right? And I'm saying instead of looking at what does the Bible say about the Christian God, I'm saying look at what nature says about nature through things like physics or like biology, chemistry, you know, or sociology.
So the issue here is there's when people are living in accordance to God, God is representing a set of rules and conditions and edicts and practices and traditions and whatnot and ideals that may deviate from nature. When we're talking about nature, as I stated before, we're part of nature. We are living in nature. The whole universe is nature. The whole cosmos is nature, as far as we can tell. We don't have a choice on it. We can't deviate from it. So there's no point in trying to live in accordance to it. We have no choice. This is where we are. So this doesn't seem to be something extra that we need to do.
I disagree with you. There are people that reject like reality, or at least try to. You know, I agree that if a car is going to hit you, a car is going to hit you. Exactly, but that's what I'm saying. People that do try and reject reality, they should not do that.
And some of them who are doing that are on a chemical dependency, such as medication, prescription or non-prescription. Others are following a cult or religion, or and sometimes that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on society's expectations.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm essentially saying something like the Bible like does not necessarily like convey the best wisdom for this day and age. So instead of doing that, maybe we should look at like the one thing that we know exists, and the one thing that I think is most logically taken as something that is divine as in nature, right? We should look at that and examine that. And when I say nature, like I mean reality or like the universe, right? Literally like everything that happens. We should like seek to examine it, understand it, and then live according to it.
Well, the thing is, what you're basically saying then is don't follow religion and don't follow a deity.
Well, yeah, but I think essentially, yeah, you can take it as such. Like I reject like classical like theism, of course. Yes.
So yeah, so basically, what it sounds like you're trying to argue is that people should follow nature, and that's something we don't have a choice on. If we're not doing anything, we have the choice to deviate from it, but the default, the null hypothesis default, is that we are part of nature, and that's that. It sounds to me like all you're trying to do is label nature as a deity and as divine.
I think that's I think I've said much more than that. You know, like we should like live according in accordance to like how nature works, right? So we should use the things like science and physics. Well, physics is science, but like hard science, soft science to like seek and understand the world. I'm saying much more than like, well, these things are synonymous and that's that. I'm saying like we should kind of take a little bit of a stoic approach, you know, as in like the world is how it is. Like the world doesn't necessarily care whether you like it or not. So like don't try and pray to some divine entity. Just like examine the world and try to like shape your world as insofar you can in accordance to what you want or what makes you happy.
Yeah, so basically I can't help it. This is reality works whether I like it or not. If I want to jump 20 feet in the air, I can't do it.
Well, I'd go one step further. I'd say that's wrong. I'd say we should fight against nature. I think we should overcome nature, like try to change nature to make it more moral. So I'd say that nature is probably the biggest evil that we have to overcome.
You blasphemer, you.
Nature.
Maybe like I don't ascribe like any morality towards nature. You know, nature is how it is, and like nature is not a moral actor.
No, you said we should live according to nature or something like that, and I'm saying no. We should change nature to make it according to our desires.
I think that's impossible. When you say change nature, I take that as change the laws of physics. I don't think that is within our power to do. But
I think it will be in the future.
If we can find a way to do that, then we can accomplish even greater things than we've done already.
Sure. I mean, that would be cool, but that's like a communist making like pro-communism arguments and then saying, well, this would be really nice in a post-scarcity world. I'm saying like, yeah, sure, but like we don't live in that world. So, but yeah, I would agree with you. Like, I just don't see that.
So what you're presenting here is like nature. You're not going to have any problem with people saying, yeah, nature is part of reality. That doesn't bring us to it being a god. You haven't convinced me, at least, and I don't think you've convinced anybody else here, that nature is a deity or is divine.
Yeah, at least memes aside, with the like convince God exists, right? Do you see at least like the utility in it of like teaching this to like religious people, like classically religious people, and just be like, hey, maybe this is like an alternative you guys could follow that's a little bit more in line with like the modern world and like modern thinking, and like it's better for you.
Not exactly, because I think the utility of what we should teach is going to be based on what would convince them to change their position. Simply saying treat nature as God would not in any way change their position. So I think the utility would be to try and make alternatives that answer questions better than God does. So like a better objective morality or a better explanation for the creation of the universe. Science is more a utility to change religious people's minds than just telling them to call nature God.
You think there's an objective morality?
Science is more on the track of accuracy there, because if you're just disguising it as a deity, that's, as TJump said, that's not helping. That's actually contributing to the problem, I think.
Okay, well, thank you. That's all I want to say about that. I think there are other people waiting.
Hey, thank you very much. That was interesting.
Thanks for coming up.
I just want to say that I really like TJump's attitude that we should fight against nature and try to overcome it. I think that's brilliant.
Thank you. It's part of my objective morality that I think that we should do everything we can to make nature not kill us ever.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we have built structures that we can live in, like homes and buildings that we can do business in, and building roads, is already examples of deviating from nature, because we're actually changing the way nature is organized.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello, Clark. Hey, your audio's working. Welcome.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Tom, I just wanted to say, love the new hairstyle. Looks great on you.
Thank you.
I was wondering, how do you guys feel about reason?
I like reason. Reason is cool.
Okay. Yeah, because in my view, I think that reason in a way is sort of the bedrock of reality, because if you think about it, the way we perceive reality or these objects that we see in the world or whatever, our mind inherently categorizes these things into like a space and time format so that we can understand them. But that doesn't mean that we can demonstrate that space and time exists outside of our minds. How are we able to demonstrate that?
We can't, but why do we need to? Like, why would our ability to demonstrate something have any implications to how it exists on its own?
Well, I'm saying that we're not able to even like make any good arguments as to show that it exists on its own.
Well, we can, but again, that doesn't make a difference. Why would our epistemic arguments have any relevance to the ontology of the things?
Well, because the thing is, if you're going to be appealing to science, then you're going to have to go down one of two paths. You're going to have to either say scientific theories have meaning if and only if they're possibly falsifiable, or they have meaning if and only if they're verifiable. And since you as
no.
atheists appeal to this,
well,
yeah.
No, neither of those things. So those are two of the criterion for science. So there's like 6 or 7 different criterion for science. Those are just 2 of them, but neither of those answer the question. So like, I think it's perfectly fine to think of the universe as just a bunch of rocks, and literally if no conscious mind existed in it, there'd be no problem. So there's no reason there. Reason is a language we made up to describe the things we experience, but things can exist on their own without anyone doing any reasoning.
No, so the thing is that reason isn't something we make up. We can make languages that come from our ability to reason, but reason is inherent in our minds. It's how we analyze the world around us. That's what reasoning is happening in your mind. Do you agree? Right. It's not just coming out of your mouth. It's not. So
well, like, so I think logic and math are languages that we use to describe reality. We made them up to describe patterns in the nature of things that exist. Reason doesn't exist in a rock. Reason is a language we made up to describe the way the rock is. The things that are in the rock are spin, charge, mass, momentum, energy. Those things exist in the rock, and we use reason to describe those things.
Yeah, but why I'm saying reason is something we ought to like value more than any sort of scientific theory is because we undergo these huge paradigm shifts in science. Like for example, going from Newtonian mechanics to general relativity. And if we look at the actual axioms of these paradigm systems, if we look at the axioms of Newtonian mechanics, they're completely different from those of general relativity. You can't like absorb the theories we've gained from Newtonian mechanics and just plug it into general relativity. It doesn't work that way. Like you can adjust them and modify them to make them just as predictive and accurate as they were previously, but it doesn't transfer like that. Like so what I'm trying to say is that because of these paradigm shifts, at the root of everything, science is very much a subjective discipline.
No. So science is like all of our science. Science is a conceptual methodology, something we made up in our head, just like reason. So reason and science are both things we've made up in our head. But science is things we've made up in our head plus something that can identify and differentiate things in the world. So it's the future testable predictions thing. Whereas just our ability to make up things in our head does not give us the ability to tell about stuff in the world. So because science has this other criterion in addition to just stuff in our head and reason, it gives us the ability to talk about things in the world that reason can't. So reason on its own can't tell us about the world because we can reason in lots of ways that don't describe the world. But science does tell us about the world. Is it always right? No. Does it need to be? No. Reason is essentially wrong 99% of the time because you can reason for infinitely many things. You can say, I imagine a unicorn. That's perfectly logical. Are there unicorns? No. So science gives us a way to, with reason, have a different thing in addition to that we use both of these together to filter down the number of possible things that actually exist, whereas reason alone does not do that. There's infinite possibilities with just reason.
Yeah, but Tom, what I'm arguing is that science and scientific theories and hypotheses and all of this, it's tricking us in a way because, there's not really a good way in which we can conclude where the meaning comes from in terms of like a specific hypothesis or scientific theory or whatever.
I don't know what that
means. How do we derive meaning?
I don't know what meaning of the words, like objective moral meaning. I don't know what you mean.
Well, I'm talking about in terms of like the statements within the hypothesis. Like what's going to make the statements meaningful if not for something transcendental?
Relations between stuff we observe. So we don't need anything transcendental there. Like spin and energy and charge are relations between different objects and how they interact.
Yeah, but do you think that we need to be able to verify these relations for them to be meaningful?
No, they're there whether or not we verify them.
Okay, so the meaning to you, I'm trying to figure out, is it going to be derived from whether or not these relations are possibly falsifiable in any way?
No, I don't know what meaning is. Just the definitions. We can make up definitions in any way we want.
Well, because this is a problem for you, because there's two things here. You either have like verificationism, which just says we should aim to verify the hypothesis or hypotheses, and falsificationism, which says we should try to falsify
Again,
them.
those are only two of the criterions in the evolution of the scientific method. Those are both from the early 1900s. We've added some on then. Right now we use novel testable predictions, which is a combination of lots of other things. So it's not verificationism or falsificationism. Karl Popper. We've made some progress since then, but none of that has anything to do with your argument. So again, meaning is irrelevant here. All objects can exist with no meaning. We just use the words that we've made up, are the meaning of those words we've made up to try to describe the things that we see existing.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the meaning is important because we have to determine what is evidence for a theory. And
Yeah.
and we have to analyze where the meaning comes from for the theory, and how the evidence, and one piece of evidence is more substantial than another piece. Because I don't
Right.
know if you've heard of the Ravens paradox, but like anything will be evidence for any theory.
Yes, so I agree. It's a problem of underdetermination, but again, that doesn't matter. That's epistemology. You're confusing epistemology and ontology. This is a well-known fallacy in philosophy, that you have to make a distinguishing between epistemology, the ways we know things, and ontology, the way things are. There's a disconnect between those two. The fact that we know something in a particular way has no bearing on whether or not it is actually that way. So it seems like you're saying that, well, because we need the meanings in order to know things, therefore they must be meanings, essentially. It's like if I need a telescope to look at the other galaxies, well, the other galaxies must then be made of telescopes. Clearly that doesn't work. So simply saying that we need meanings in our epistemology does not follow that meanings are actually inherent in the things that we're describing. It's confusing epistemology and ontology.
Yeah, but I'm saying that all observational statements are going to presuppose non-empirical principles. It's not going to be the case that you can just observe some phenomena empirically and
Right.
understand it without presupposing some metaphysical truths.
Conceptual truths. So there's conceptual truths that we make up in our heads, and we presuppose the conceptual truths and then make empirical observations, but that doesn't matter to whether what things exist. So like conceptual truths don't need to exist. They're just ways we use to analyze things. So it doesn't, like, we can assume there's a metaphysical quantum field and there's no meaning inherent in that. It's just the words that we've made up to describe the physical thing. And that's the ontology is the quantum field, and it explains everything, and there's no meaning in the thing.
Yeah, no, Tom, what you're doing here is you're confusing epistemology and ontology, because just because you know things work based on certain inferences you can make according to specific data or whatever, doesn't mean that it isn't the case that our mind is inherently categorizing our experience in such a way for us to perceive reality in a very fixated sense. So you're saying, well,
Both
that
of those are
can't be the
true.
case.
So I agree. Yes, like the fact that we imagine something in a particular way does not mean that's the way it is. I agree, but that's the whole point. It doesn't matter the way we imagine things. Our imagining, or the meaning in our imagining, has no bearing on whether or not it actually exists. So I don't know. Your argument here just seems to be fundamentally flawed. You don't need meaning in any of that.
Tom, what I'm saying is that you are actually confusing epistemology and ontology, because just because you know that this state of affairs doesn't exist doesn't mean that it doesn't
What?
exist. I mean, just because you can say that
Literally,
you know it
that sentence did not make sense. If I know something doesn't exist, then it probably doesn't exist. But I don't understand anything you're saying now.
Do you have like omniscient levels of knowledge? Like, do you know everything?
Knowledge is a justified true belief. You don't need omniscience. You just need a justified true belief. So I have a justified true belief. Round squares don't exist.
Well, what about Gettier cases?
What about them? Like, you can still have knowledge with Gettier cases.
Right. Wouldn't that really necessitate that justified true belief needs a better qualifier? Because
Sure, but it doesn't mean it's not knowledge. So you can have a better definition of knowledge. It's still knowledge.
Okay, so then why would you bring up just JTB when you know you need to qualify it further?
No. So you can have some knowledge, like Newtonian mechanics gives us some knowledge, and then the general relativity gives us more knowledge. It's a better definition, but they're both still good. So JTB is a good definition. It works. It gives us good knowledge. And then you need to have a better definition of knowledge. You'd have a new criterion in some way, but JTB is fine. So you don't need omniscience for knowledge. It's called fallibilism. You do not need omniscience.
Yeah, well, the problem is in fallibilism, you're having infinite numbers of possibilities, infinite sets of axioms, infinite brain states. There's infinite possibilities, which is fine, but
well, there's not infinite brain states, but yes, there are infinite possibilities. So,
well, who's to say? Who's to say? Why are there no infinite brain states?
Because my brain isn't infinitely large.
That's like almost begging the question. Why does your brain need to be infinitely large?
What does this have to do with your question? Like, all of our evidence indicates my brain has 100 trillion connections. It's not infinite.
Right, but what I'm saying is, how do you know that your brain has 100 trillion?
Because of evidence. I have a justified true belief based on evidence that my brain has 100 trillion connections. There is no justified true belief of anything else.
No, you don't have a justified true belief based on evidence, because evidence itself has no meaning. You need to have meaning to justify the true belief.
Evidence has meaning given what we use it in the dictionary, so we gave it meaning.
Okay, so what is the truth maker for the meaning of evidence in the dictionary?
We made it up. That's the truth maker. The truth maker is we have a word and we gave it a definition, and therefore it's true that word has that definition. The truth maker is we made it up.
So anything we make up and put in a book is definitionally true. That's the
yes, that's how definitions work. All language is ambiguous. Natural ambiguity of language. Linguistics 101. Yes.
Yeah, trust me, I know. I've seen you talk about Bosch, about the chair and stuff. It was pretty cringe. But look, what I'm saying is you're still confusing epistemology and ontology.
No, okay? I'm definitely not. So that's all epistemology.
This new haircut has got you going crazy, buddy. You need to calm down.
You need to actually make an argument.
I am. I'm telling you can't rely on evidence.
Hey, Clark, we want to try to keep down the number of ad hominems, okay?
Well, he's just got a bunch of racist mods in his server. That's okay. It's just a
Oh, yeah, not doing that.
Yeah, I think I've heard enough.
Not doing that.
That's a good decision.
Thanks for coming up, Clark.
Thanks for taking your stream of consciousness journey. That was fun.
I want to say that
he did better than the other guys. It's fine.
Hang on. I just want to say that TJump's chair to me looks very comfortable, and I'm wondering if TJump has any final words on that person's arguments before we move on.
My hair destroyed him.
Hey, TJ, why the? Did you just want to change your hair, or is there a specific thing you're?
10,000 subscribers. It was one of the Patreon goals.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, interesting. I have to go and look at your hair now.
It's pink.
Oh,
I do that with my beard every month for a different activism cause. So like for March it was green, for April it's going to be blue, and I do it for a different charitable organization to raise awareness. But I'd never seen. Yeah, that was like your hair was extreme. I was like, whoa, what were you trying to do? So.
Yep.
Interesting. That's great, guys. Hey, Debate Monger, welcome. Thank you for waiting while we finish chatting here.
Yeah. I thought what Clark actually was saying is kind of interesting, but
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you turn up your volume a little bit? You're coming through.
I don't know. Maybe I could put the mic closer.
Excellent.
That works.
Really well. Thank you. Carry on.
I think that what Clark was saying is interesting, but I'm not probably qualified to really get into that, arguing what he was arguing. What I'm proposing is though that you already kind of believe in a set type of God. If you in any way, shape, or form choose to recognize consciousness or emergent properties such as similar to consciousness, you've already kind of put yourself in a category of believing in a God.
How?
Because I think when you put some type of a consciousness into a system, they have the power to influence that system.
How do you define God?
Just marginally. So that would be like something that is able to perceive of itself, and have notions about itself in the external world, just aware, something self-aware. And
so are monkeys gods
in a world? Do you verify that they have a consciousness is
yes.
what I'm asking you?
Yes.
Yeah, so they would be gods, right? that might be
And
a flawed concept about what a consciousness would be, right? Because you would presuppose that they are a consciousness. You would not verifiably know that they are one. But if you were going to say that your experience, your awareness of yourself, of the world, etc., qualifies you as to be a god or to be conscious, I would say that that is synonymous to you calling yourself a god, and that's what that's my argument basically. Do you think that there's some holes in that?
yes, the definition of God is a conscious being that created the universe. I didn't create the universe. So you're simply changing the definition of God to be consciousness. Like I could change the definition of God to be my PlayStation 4 controller. My PlayStation 4 controller exists, therefore God exists. But everyone in every religion who uses God in a similar way for 7 billion people across the planet would be like, that's dumb. You're just making up a new definition. So it doesn't actually...
There's tons of different types of gods in the world. Yes, there are these creationist type of gods, but there are also like lower deities and other type of higher powers, right? Lower, higher powers. I know
Yeah.
it's weird.
Well, higher powers. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that, yeah, that's true, right? We aren't on the same level of a god as one that instantiates physical properties or something like that, maybe. But I would say that the way that we interpret them and the way that we choose to select for qualities that are able to perceive of known facts, the way that we've kind of evolved into conscious human beings, right, is I think literally the building of a god, right?
No. So like
right, maybe one of these lower, higher deities.
Well, if it was higher, that might be arguments for God. But when the topic of the debate, convince us gods exist, is asking, is there some new thing that hasn't already been demonstrated via science to exist that you're claiming exists outside of our known ontology? So if we already know it exists, like consciousness, or what was the other thing, the universe, or potatoes, those aren't a god, because when we say God, we want to know is there some other thing, some new thing that we don't know about yet.
Some unique quality that you haven't examined yet, right?
Yeah. So just saying we already have consciousness. Yes, we agree we have consciousness, and if you want to call that a god, that's fine. I'm going to call it a potato.
Right, but now you're kind of giving credence to what Clark was, kind of the argument that Clark was making, right?
No.
Like how it's a radically subjectivist, right?
Definitions are radically subjective, but he said reason was the foundation of reality. That's an ontology claim. So that part, nothing he said supported. But yes, we can make up whatever definitions we want. The question is there a new ontology, a new state of existing properties that we don't know about yet, which usually means like a god who created the universe or something. If you're just going to redefine things we already know about, like that's fine. It's just not a god.
So it's like not any notion of systems is one that's like radically deeper in understanding than just like what we can perceive of right now. Well, I think that that's really hard to do, and really I don't think that you need to do that to qualify of a god, right? Like just saying that the things of gods that I've described is like good enough, I think. But that's not good enough to give us like a creation story or something like that. I agree with that. But but given that we are able to kind of recognize maybe ourselves as a conscious being, I think that we can from that maybe develop some notion of a like god.
You don't sound very convinced by yourself, let alone us.
Right. Well, do you think that the matter of understanding that a human being would have is like limited, right? So even describing something like a god or something that you guys actually think, right, would that even be like something that you, since it's a radical notion, right? Something that's an ontology that's different. Like, how would you even be convinced by it, since it's not transferable?
Any novel testable predictions can be used to discover a new ontology. So, like, all of the new particles, neutrinos, were discovered through an empirical experiment. So that was a new thing that was posited to exist, ontology, and it was discovered to exist via novel testable predictions that we could observe.
Right. So you're like asking us to do novel testable predictions on another consciousness, right?
No, like, I grant all the consciousnesses exist. So I agree they exist, but that's not a new thing in ontology. That's something we already know about. So, like, if you're just redefining things we already know about, that's not what we mean by a god.
But isn't the thing that we're trying to test for some type of consciousness, right?
Well, I already agree consciousness exists. So, like, that's something we already know about. When we say convince us gods exists, we want to know about something new, something we don't already know exists.
Right, and that's why I'm saying, if you're granting that consciousnesses exist, right, you have to grant that like any emergent property. I wouldn't say that any like, I can't be self-aware of some other type of consciousness. I'm only aware of my consciousness, right? But if you're going to go so far as recognize your brother's consciousness, then you're kind of like leaping forward into territories that I don't think that you're justified in doing.
I don't care. What does that have to do with God? So, like,
right, but I'm saying when you're doing that, you're saying that that's not a new ontology, but I'm saying that that is a radically new ontology, because you're giving, without any, like, what is the novel testable prediction that you use to verify another person's self-awareness, right?
when I punch them in the face, they scream in pain.
How do you know that that's not automatic responses?
It could be, but it gives me evidence to conclude they're conscious. Doesn't need to be 100% certainty, but it does give me reason. So we are justified in believing there are other minds.
You're justified in believing that, sure, but like the knowledge of that is not, it doesn't go that far, I think, right?
Knowledge is a justified true belief. So if I'm justified in my belief and it's true, then that's knowledge. So yeah, that is knowledge. But again, this doesn't go address the topics. The topic is convince us gods, as in something beyond all of the stuff we currently know about exists.
And it helps if you have a clear definition and or an argument of some kind, instead of just sort of meandering through epistemology.
My core argument is still that if you're going to grant one separate instance of consciousness, then you've already kind of granted the notion that there is a God. Even like when you're granting something outside of yourself, then I think that that's you giving up. Like you have novel testable predictions. I have my novel testable predictions, right? So why not just say that my novel testable predictions prove that there is a God or something like that?
Do you have one example of a consciousness that exists outside of a physical being of some sort?
That's not what I'm going to do, because I'm saying that you guys already believe in a God, right? I'm not saying anything about myself, right?
Yeah, but you're just changing the definition of God. So I can change the definition of God to potatoes, and then everyone here believes in God because God is a potato.
Right. But I think that we both agree that the definition of a God, like ultimate God even, would be one of a conscious divine power, right? Like it has some type of self-awareness or something like that, right?
Well, like something that created the universe, that's non-physical, that has a soul, that exists eternally. Like, those are the properties of God. Just consciousness isn't any of those. Consciousness isn't divine. Unless you're saying it's like non-physical or something.
But that's why I'm saying, like, the meat bag around you, right? The meat bag brother that you have or whatever, that has this emergent property that you would consider a consciousness. Like, what's to say that just the constellations of the star doesn't have something similar?
There's no evidence that it indicates it does.
Yeah, but that's kind of where I'm like, well, how would you describe it? Like I throw the table. I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me, at least.
Throw the table? I don't what?
Like this doesn't make sense to me. Like if you're gonna go ahead and say that the constellation of your brother's meat bag grants you that he's a conscious being, then what's to say that the constellation of the stars doesn't grant?
Because
behavior, right? We observe behavior, and there's no behavior of the stars that warrants saying that they're conscious. Like you haven't provided any justifying, supporting evidence that increases the probability of your proposition being true. All you've said is, well, if you believe that any proposition could be true, then you just have to grant that any other proposition could be true. What you're saying is just basically trivialism. It's kind of meaningless.
Okay. I'm not saying that I think that consciousness is outside of myself exists, right? And what I'm saying that you guys do, like what's to say that with that set of parameters, that something like a constellation wouldn't be granted the same type of autonomy?
Because it does not meet the criterion we use to establish the probability of something having consciousness. As Ix said, we use behavior. We say, if I punch you, you hurt. If I give you options, you pick things. If we give options to stars, they don't pick things. They don't hurt when I punch them. The evidence we see of consciousness that I can like change the things you feel by zapping you in the brain. I can change what you look like by zapping you in the brain. I can't see any kind of interaction that happens with stars. So all of the evidence we have that consciousness is associated with the brain, stars don't have brains, therefore there's no reason to believe stars have consciousness.
All right. I think I'm going to give up on trying to have conversation. It's been good trying to talk.
Thanks for coming up. I'm not convinced.
Pwned.
Any comments or anything? All right, pull up the next one. Flipdo, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, man?
Just
so many biceps.
So convince us, God or gods or whatever you think exists.
Yeah. So the last time I was up here, I brought up prophecy, like prophecy being fulfilled, being good evidence or enough evidence for Jesus' authenticity of being God.
Yep, that'd be great evidence.
Like well, the way that he would be betrayed by his own people and sold for a slave's price.
Well, that's not novel, so that wouldn't be a prophecy.
I mean, what do you mean it's not novel?
Like any criminal
leader, like if you were to say let's interpret Jesus as like a cult leader.
Sure.
Do cult leaders usually, get betrayed by their following and sold off for slave wages?
Yes.
Usually.
One of the common traits of cult leaders is that they're paranoid, so that they are always saying, you're going to betray me. And so they have paranoid tendencies. It's one of the most common things among cult leaders. And it usually happens that people in their congregations sell them out, give ins to the governments or their authorities to get into the organization to arrest them or to find stocks or whatever. That is usually one of the primary ways that cult leaders are.
Is there an instance?
L. Ron Hubbard, the Drink the Kool-Aid people, all of the different cults. Jim Jones, yeah. So it's pretty common.
Kool-Aid people. Yeah, I mean, like, were they in trouble for an actual crime?
Some of them not. Like, whether or not it's a crime doesn't matter. It's whether or not does the government like you or not. And if the government doesn't like you, then they're going to find ways to get in, like plant moles, like Falun Gong in China is a good example, and they're going to arrest you. So whether or not they committed a crime doesn't matter. If the government doesn't like you, then they're going to try to take you down.
So the reason it's prophecy though, is because this was written, I believe, 800 BC before.
Again, so if you're predicting something that happens all the time, it's not prophecy. So if I predict a war is going to happen, like, that's not a prophecy unless I give like an exact date, an exact time, say the exact person who did it. Like, it has to be really specific. Says this person will betray me at exactly this time, at exactly this date. That's a prophecy. Just saying someone will betray me is not a prophecy. Thank you for the super chat, Jacob.
That would be akin to saying, I predict that we're going to have an earthquake and I live in California.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess there were two specifications. One, that he would be betrayed by his own people.
Common.
Common, yeah, I guess. And two, the exact price that he would be sold for.
I mean, that's a pretty good one, but what is? I don't remember that part in the Bible.
30 silver pieces.
It's there's a previous reference to the Bible. He didn't specifically say himself.
Yeah, it's an Old Testament. So this is something.
It's an Old Testament. It's an Old Testament statement that was fulfilled in the New Testament. So,
Yeah.
but the problem is you can't determine if that's prophecy or self-fulfilling, because if there was prior knowledge that amount was important, then here's the issue: is that there's not enough evidence to determine if it's prophetic, or if you can't eliminate the possibility that was used intentionally. So the prophecy would have been known by Jews because it was written in the because it was in the Old Testament. So they would have been aware of that story, or via oral tradition or whatever means. They would have been aware of that amount of money. If that amount of money is used again, if they are trying to solidify the idea of Christ as the new Messiah, then that would be another way to give that claim more credibility in the eyes of other Jews, in the point of converting them away from Judaism into the new fold of Christianity. So giving your new splinter faction, which is essentially what Christianity was, is a splintering off of Judaism, giving it credibility, the best way to give that religion credibility is to adhere it to the prophecies of the old religion. That way it's like the prophecies are coming true, but it's this new way over here. And essentially what you're saying to the followers is that Judaism has not given us anyone. No one has come up following Judaism as it was that has fulfilled all these prophecies. Well, here's this new guy with this new line of thinking and this new ideology, and all of the prophecies are being fulfilled. Well, if you're trying to fulfill them, if you're trying to give your new faith credibility, then it would behoove you to make those prophecies come true. Right? Or at least to at least write down that those prophecies came true.
Yeah.
But we don't have enough information to eliminate the possibility that it wasn't 30 pieces and it was just written to be that in order to confirm the prophecy in the Old Testament. Because we don't have anybody who was there. We don't have any firsthand accounts we don't have any reliable firsthand accounts. And these stories were all written decades after his supposed death.
Yeah.
So they were written in retrospect. And
how do we understand history then?
Like the biblical versions don't even agree with each other, right? So only Matthew mentions 30 silver. Luke and Acts do not. And the only extra canonical mention of it that we have, which is just like not in the canon, but it's also religious work, says it's 30 pieces of gold. That's the narrative of Joseph Arimathea.
Well, I think there's another problem
in
Zechariah.
You don't have a single corroborating piece of evidence, even within the canon, that says 30 pieces of silver.
Well, another thing is that
just assuming that this one is correct, and that the narrative of Joseph Arimathea.
One sec. So in Zechariah, it doesn't say the Messiah will be sold for 30 pieces of silver. It has another story with 30 pieces of silver in it, which can be interpreted as it has anything to do with the Messiah. It doesn't literally say the Messiah will be sold for 30 pieces of silver.
It's both Zechariah and Jeremiah.
I don't think either of them say that the Messiah will be sold for 30 pieces of silver.
TJump is correct on that, but it also doesn't mention Jesus.
No, it says the shepherd.
Mention of
it doesn't say. It doesn't give a name.
It's true, but the previous story, the previous written out story, was that it would be the shepherd. Jesus called himself the shepherd. This gives it credibility. This lends credibility that Jesus is the Messiah. You see, it's an individual coming along in the future, knowing what the oral tradition is, and then attempting to literally bring about that stuff in order to prove that they're the Messiah, in order to give the new religion credibility. You can't eliminate the possibility that this was all done with forethought.
You had accounts of Peter who wanted to stop this and subvert this from happening.
One sec. For it to be a prophecy,
you have instances.
For it to be a prophecy, it literally has to say the Messiah will do this. Having a word which can be interpreted as Messiah, well, you can just pick any different passage in the Bible and say this one was a prophecy.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually, for it to actually be a prophecy, it has to say this is a prophecy about the Messiah which will happen in the future. Just taking a story and interpreting it to be a prophecy isn't a prophecy. Like I can look at Harry Potter.
One was being narrated, so it's supposed to be narrated by God.
So is the whole Bible, but
I mean, I guess in reality, but in the specific story of Zechariah, where he explains that what is it? He says, "Give me what I'm worth," and he gave this kind of like astounded kind of dialogue where it's, "Oh, I'm worth 30 silver pieces," which was the price of a slave at that time, and that's at that time. So you'd also have to be predicted. You'd also have to predict the amount a slave would cost at 800 years from now. So it's like
there's no prediction.
It's kind of
prediction is saying
it's kind of hard to predict.
It's not a prediction.
800 years in the future.
It's not a prediction. So again, for it to be a prediction, you have to say this will happen in the future. Just saying Zechariah says, "Give me what he's worth," and God gives him silver pieces or whatever. That's not a prediction. That's just a fact that a story has in it. And then you're trying to make an arbitrary connection between the fact of a story in the past and some fact in the future, which literally anyone can do. You can just take Harry Potter, start looking for different passages and see how they connect to future events, or The Simpsons or something. That doesn't mean it's a prophecy. It just means that you're finding connections between the things and calling it a prophecy. For it to be a prophecy, it has to say, this is a prophecy about the future. This will happen.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you know which books these are coming out from, though?
Zechariah and Jeremiah, the ones you just said.
Yeah, and do you know their status?
Their status is whatever you interpret them to be. Again, this isn't
okay.
literally
Well, they're
says.
prophets of God.
Yeah, that's nice.
That makes them. That's prophecy.
No. That's assuming that they're prophets of God and they're not just people writing stories.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Well,
but there's a whole lot of things you got to jump to in order to make this thing fit the narrative. And I'm just saying, and I'm just saying, you don't even have to look at all of that. Just look at what you can verify. Just look at what evidence you have and what you have to work with, as far as like the biblical sources and extra biblical sources. Look at all the details we have. What conclusions can we draw from the information we have? And the problem is that the information is so limited, and we cannot, beyond a reasonable doubt, eliminate certain possibilities. So ultimately, you could say, we don't know, we can't derive a conclusion because we lack detail and we lack information. So we can assume things, but we shouldn't take those things as, gospel, no pun intended, because we can't verify it. All we can verify is that literally something was written down a long time ago, and we cannot discern the motivation. We cannot discern the goal. There's a lot of things, especially of the author at the time. So we don't know so much, and just assuming that it's true would be intellectually dishonest.
Okay, so do you take that with every history book?
It depends upon the amount of information that we have to verify. One thing that really, really helps is not just one story coming out of one culture, one ancient culture. That's really, really difficult, and we don't give a lot of credibility to those because it's literally one culture's version of events. But if we can get one story from one culture and then we get another story from another culture, and these things line up, then we know the truth cuts somewhere up the middle. And then we can draw conclusions based upon all of the data around us. We don't just take one story from one culture that we cannot verify and say, this was history. What we do is we say, this is their version of historical events, then this is this culture's version of historical events, and we compile all of the data into a body of evidence. And then we look at where we look at the connective tissue. We look at where we can draw connections between all of them.
Yeah.
And then we look at things like, diplomatic correspondence and trade routes and what we know from archaeology. And we put all of this together to form a picture of what most likely the future was like.
But there are some sources that earn enough credibility where you wouldn't imagine what they're saying is actually, untrue.
Yeah, but not so much in the Bible. If you were talking solely about the Bible in and of itself,
I'm
I'm talking about historically speaking.
So like there are prophecies that are really good. Hinduism has the best prophecy I've ever seen. It predicts the age of the earth is 4.3 billion years old. That's a really good prophecy. Like we know it happened. It was written 6,000 years ago. There's no ambiguity. We don't have to debate the sources. We know this was written in a book thousands of years ago, and it's a really damn good prophecy. The prophecies in the Bible are not, I don't know of any that good. Or in the Quran, the Bible, nothing. Like, they don't give specific dates. They don't give specific information. They're arbitrary and ambiguous, and debating about whether or not we trust the sources, I don't care. We have an example of a really good prophecy. The earth is 4.3 billion, because I think it was just random chance. Like, it's a good prophecy. It's better than any of the Christian evidence, but it's still not good enough to indicate a God.
That's a really far-reaching random chance. I mean, I would imagine if you were to, really be serious about seeking God, you would take it into Hinduism if it was that accurate.
Whoa. Serious about seeking God?
Yeah. I mean, if you really want,
it's kind of poisoning the well, isn't it?
No, that's fine. Like, he's saying that if you consider this to be real evidence, if you consider novel testable predictions to be real evidence, and this is a novel testable prediction, then that would be evidence of a God, which it is. This is the best evidence of a God ever, but it's not sufficient. Like, if the Hindu Bhagavad Gita was filled with these kinds of predictions, DNA is a double helix, the extinction happened at this time, the universe is 14 billion years old, then yes, that would be great evidence of a God. If literally it said all of these things in the Bhagavad Gita, then yes, that would be great. But there's lots of things it says that are silly and ridiculous and wrong. And the fact that I got one thing right means I'm probably not going to trust
exactly right. So it's 4.3 billion years in Hinduism, but the actual figure is closer to 4.5. So we would say it's close, right?
Yeah, that's still a better prediction than literally anything in any other religion. So that's still good. I consider that evidence. That's real evidence.
I mean, that's if what we are interpreting from the universe is actually real or not.
Well, yes, if science is right, which is the most reliable source we have.
Well, I mean, you guys said it yourself. I mean, we make up truth for ourselves.
No.
Yeah, we do.
No.
That really comes down to your theory of truth. What theory of truth that you adhere to, like correspondence theory, pragmatist, theory, coherence theory.
Yeah, I don't know all the labels.
If you wanted changing the subject, does that mean you're conceding that your prophecy is not very strong evidence, or did you want to continue about the prophecy stuff?
I mean, I only brought up the seriousness about seeking God because it seems like if you were to see 4 billion years and you believe wholeheartedly in the sciences align with it, then Hinduism should be what you guys point to. But
yes,
you've noted other things.
Because TJump has brought it up a number of times, and it's one thing that he loves bringing up to people is why we rely upon science, and that is 3 little words that he loves so much. TJump, what are they?
Novel testable predictions. But wait, I agree. That is evidence. That is evidence of Hinduism. It is the best evidence for a God I've ever seen from anyone. That is evidence. It's not sufficient evidence. It doesn't move the probability over 50% exists, does not exist, but it is evidence. If there were lots of those predictions, that would be a real good reason to believe in Hinduism.
Yeah, I mean, it's only 500 million years off the current understanding.
Yes, but when there's only one out of if there's 100 predictions and only one of them come true, how do I say that prediction was prophecy or just got lucky? How can I differentiate?
Well, I mean, that's within Hinduism, not Christianity, I guess.
Well, but I'm just saying this. Like, if I were to make 100 predictions, okay, and let's say that these 100 predictions are going to come true in the next 10 years, and then of those 100 predictions in the next 10 years, only one of them comes true. How can I differentiate between what came true, that one thing I predicted? How can I differentiate between prophecy and I just got lucky?
Yeah, no. I would say you're just flinging spaghetti, and one happened
and something happened to stick, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No, but I think with the prophecy of the 30 silver pieces, it actually, that whole entire prophecy actually came true. He was betrayed by his own people, sold for 30 silver pieces.
We've already broken down how there's too many inconsistencies.
Well, okay,
of all the gospel narratives, it's only mentioned once, and then it's mentioned as a different currency. A gold as opposed to silver in another one. It's no extra biblical accounts, and you can't eliminate the possibility that this was set up with forethought by the writer. So because you can't eliminate, you can't say it's prophecy. You can say that, wow.
From the Gospel of Josephus, though.
Wait. So the whole reason I brought up this Hindu example is because this is better in every conceivable way. It's precise and exact. Yours is ambiguous, and you can interpret it.
500 million years off. That doesn't sound precise.
No. It's more precise than anything you provided. So the ways to interpret the Hindu texts is more precise. It gives one number.
Okay.
Wait,
I understand.
let me finish. So
okay, yeah.
Your text is ambiguous. It does not say prophecy. It does not say this will happen in the future. It does not say it will happen to the Messiah. You are interpreting in all of these facts, none of which it says. One second, let me finish. So the Hindu one is a very exact. It's very precise. It's unambiguous. It gives a prediction about what we will know in the future, and all of that it got very right. The closest to be right. It doesn't need to be perfect. Who cares if it's perfect? It's less than 0.1% off. That's really damn good. So yours is super ambiguous, can be interpreted in many ways, may or may not have happened, could be added in later. It's a very bad prediction. This is a very good prediction. So until you can provide something at this level of accuracy, Hinduism wins on all accounts of all predictions because it has a better one than all of the ones you could provide.
Well, that's just confirmation bias, and it's 500 million years off.
It's 200, and again, that's still better than any prediction you have.
Okay.
But it's still better than every prediction in the Bible combined.
Is it? I mean, like, okay, so the prediction of being betrayed by his own people. Also, this guy, honestly, I would hire him for my finances if he could predict the current what something would cost 800 million.
It did not occur.
Wait, so you're saying that Jesus wasn't betrayed?
Where in the text does it say in 800 years this is what a slave will be worth? Does it say that sentence?
The text, no. So the text was preserved by the Jewish people. 800
when does
years
it predict in the future this is what a slave will be worth? Does it ever say those sentences? Does it ever make a prophecy that says in the future this will happen?
Oh no.
It doesn't. It's ambiguous.
A servant's wages, though.
It's ambiguous and arbitrary.
It actually says in the prophecy a servant's wages, I believe. I forget how it comes
great.
up.
When does it say in the future this will happen?
Oh, it says I will send to you a shepherd. And you are not going to accept this shepherd. You're going to betray the shepherd.
Okay.
Yeah, and he says to give me my wages, and you've priced me at the
right. So it makes zero predictions. It makes zero predictions about 800 years in the future.
Wait, hold on. There are zero predictions going on. Well, okay, I can say yes. It's not a prediction. It was prophetic. It wasn't a prediction.
So
Predictions
those are synonyms.
Just like guesses.
So prophecy and prediction is both predicting a thing about the future. So you have said nothing about 800 years in the future. You've just said, here's a story. Predictions and prophecies are both guesses. Those are literally the same thing.
Prophecy is when you're saying prophecy or being prophetic, it's words from God. Meaning it's
things
going to happen.
You imagine will happen because you think God spoke to you. So predictions are better than prophecies.
If you believe in God, this is prophecy.
That's great. So you have a prediction, which you call a prophecy of something you think will happen in the future, which nowhere in that text does it say that.
It's God's saying.
I don't care. Your imaginary sky daddy isn't real, so I don't care.
Hold on. You really don't sound like you want to find God if you're.
I don't want to waste time. I don't want to waste time on your silly distinction between prediction and prophecy. They're the same thing. You're predicting the future. They are the same thing. You don't get to debate this. You're making a prediction about the future. Yes, prophecy is a worse guess. Prediction is better than prophecy.
Not a worse guess. No,
stop wasting time on this. I don't care about your silly definition.
You're telling me the wrong definition.
I don't care about your silly definition.
You can identify it a certain way.
I don't care. I don't care about your silly definition. You're making a prediction. It was wrong. There's nowhere in that says that it's going to happen. There's nowhere it says 800 years. It doesn't say anything about prediction or prophecy. You are making shit up and saying, here's a story in the Old Testament. I'm going to make up that it's saying something about the New Testament, even though it doesn't say that anywhere in the Old Testament. That's not a prediction. What is a prediction is when a book says, this is the age of the earth and we will discover this. That's a prediction. That's a good prophecy. Yours is a terrible prophecy because it doesn't say this will happen in the future. It doesn't say this is indicative of anything in the future. It just says, here's a story, and you're arbitrarily making a connection to something in the future from nothing it says in the text. That's not a prophecy. It's not a prediction. It tells us nothing.
So your definition of prophecy is actually wrong. And the definition
Stop
I'm
wasting
using
time
is actually,
on the definition.
Hold on. It matters because if you're
it doesn't.
it gets into semantics if you don't argue on the correct definition of something. So my definition of prophecy is the same definition used across the board by anybody who takes any of this seriously.
It literally doesn't matter. I don't care what you use as your definition. You are predicting the future.
It's not mine.
I don't care. I don't care anybody's definition. You're predicting the future. Prediction and prophecy are synonyms. Move on.
Prediction is self-made.
Move on. Bring up an argument. I've already debunked this.
Okay, fine. I will move past the point. But so you're saying the 30. So being very specific about how much a servant's price would be 800 years from the future.
Where does it say that? Where does it say 800 years in the future?
Hold on. The book of Zechariah was written in between the ages of 900 to 800 BC.
I don't care when it was written. Where does it say
you don't care when
this will happen? I don't care when it was written. Tell me where it says in the future this will happen.
Well, he says, I will send you a shepherd. This is Zechariah being prophetic. So you have to know the roles of these people in the context.
I don't care about the roles. Tell me in the text, where does it say in the future this will happen?
You should care about their roles because it matters.
Stop wasting time.
Speaking.
Where in the text? Either say it does not exist in the text, anywhere that it will say in the future this will happen.
Specific timeline?
Yes.
Or in the future? Yeah. It says, I will send you a shepherd.
Which says nothing about
it's future speaking. It doesn't tell you when.
Okay. So I will send you a shepherd sometime in the next 10 billion years, and if that happens, then congratulations, my prophecy is fulfilled. Yeah. That's how garbage your prophecy is.
And this is two people speaking. In the book of Matthew, it actually references back to Jeremiah.
You've skipped over the point here. So if all it says is, I will send you a shepherd, I can say, I will send you a check, or somebody will send you a check from my family, and if that happens in the next 800 years, my prophecy's been fulfilled. No, that's a garbage prophecy. That is not a prediction. It's not precise.
Yeah.
The Hinduism one is precise. Yours is not. Yours is garbage.
Well, in the New Testament, Jesus actually, he's been called the shepherd. He calls himself the shepherd.
So?
And that he's okay. Well, I mean, okay. So what exactly are you looking for here? Because
precision.
It seems like you're just shutting down whatever's being brought up.
Okay. So let me try to explain this again. So for a prediction to be a prediction or good one, it has to be precise. It's prophecy, prediction. Okay. Again, I'm using those as synonyms here. Whatever your prediction or prophecy is, it has to be precise. It means that you can't just say it's going to happen sometime in the future, because that's not precise. I can say you're going to find a guy named Bob if you walk to the left. Well, you walk to the left for 100 miles, don't find Bob. I say, oh, it's okay, keep going, just keep going. 200 miles, you haven't found Bob. Oh, just keep going. And eventually, if you keep walking to the left for over an infinite amount of time, you'll eventually find a guy named Bob. That is a terrible prediction because it has no stopping point. A good prediction is here is a number. I'm going to give you a number. It's either right or wrong. There's no keep looking until you find it. Your prediction is terrible because it doesn't give a precise date. It doesn't give a precise account of when this is going to happen. So it's just saying sometime in the infinite future this will occur. Not a prediction, not a prophecy, not good. Garbage. Hindu specific gives you a number, 4.3 billion years ago. That's very good, very precise, very good prediction.
It's okay, 200 million years
off. Which is still better than everything you've said.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's your opinion because I'm telling you that's within the scope of your own reality. And that's only confirmation bias. If you cannot definitively prove the Earth is even 4 billion years old or the solar system is 4 billion years old.
I don't think you're understanding the point here. So one sec. So the point here is that for any prediction, one sec. So let me try to let me clarify.
Correct. The Earth was not made 4 billion years ago. It's actually
4.5. Yes, it was. So hold
3.7.
They're not correct on that one. So stop.
3.7
Stop. The point here is that if you make a prediction, every instance that it can be wrong. So if I say something will happen in the future, every time in the future it doesn't happen is a failed prediction. So everything you can interpret as the prediction succeeding, like if I say over the next 10 dice, a 6 will roll or something, each time it fails is a failed prediction. So if you say in the future, I'll send you a shepherd, if in the next year there's no shepherd, it's a failed prediction. The next year is a failed prediction. Next year, failed prediction. So this prediction has failed 800 times and then got it right once. So it's wrong 99% of the time.
It's only
Hinduism.
wrong if they gave a timeline and the time was off.
Stop. So in any prediction, this is why in science we don't accept these kind of garbage, ambiguous predictions, because they can be interpreted to mean any of those times. And so all of the interpretations that they interpreted them as 2 years later, 5 years later, those were wrong, which means the prediction, because it was ambiguous, which incorporated all those interpretations, was wrong 99% of the time. That's why predictions need to be precise. You need to give an exact date. So the Hindu prediction could have been wrong 4 billion times, but they gave an exact number. They said 4.3 billion. That was really damn close. So they gave an exact number, and that exact number only has one interpretation. Yours has a million interpretations. So because yours has a million interpretations, 99% of them are wrong. That means your prediction is 99% inaccurate. Their prediction was
that's on the wrong.
Wait. So their prediction, which gave a single interpretation, and that single interpretation was very, very close, means theirs is a very good prediction because they had a single interpretation, which was close. Yours has a million interpretations, 99% of which are wrong, and so yours is a worse prediction.
So the prophecy that was revealed didn't have a timeline on it, so you're arguing by the wrong metrics.
No, that's the problem. That's the whole point, is that if yours doesn't have a timeline, there are infinitely many interpretations, most of which are wrong, therefore the prophecy is ambiguous and not a prophecy.
But that's your own subjective terms with it, because
if it's not
giving a specific timeline, then you're arguing on the wrong metrics here.
No, that's the point.
It's telling you what will happen, not what time.
The thing that makes a prophecy, one of the attributes of prophecy is its accuracy. Okay?
Yeah.
So the problem being is that, like TJump said, if I make a prophecy and then I allow for infinite amount of time, no time limit for this prophecy to come true, I just say it will come true in the future, then it essentially means the longer the time, the more time that passes, the more opportunities present themselves for this occurrence to occur, for basically the thing to happen. It's like saying there will be a great earthquake, or even better, Yellowstone volcano will erupt. I'm making that prediction, but when will it happen? No, I'm just saying it will happen. Well, it could happen tomorrow. It could happen in the next 100,000 years. Now, and I know it's a possibility that it could happen because it's not outside the realm of reality. The volcanoes erupt. Yellowstone is a caldera. It will erupt in the future, but I'm not giving you a time. So if I simply say it will erupt, I know it's possible that it could erupt, and then I don't give a time frame. It could be any time it could erupt. Is that a prediction? That's the point.
Yeah, I understand what you guys are arguing on.
TJump was saying if in Zechariah it had simply said that there will be a man in this amount of time, like 800 years from now, who these things, and his name will be this, and he will do this, and he will be betrayed, and this is what will happen, that would be one hell of a prediction.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the only thing that you guys don't have, which is something that God's not been good with, for anybody who, is a Christian and knows what it means to wait on God. Yeah, he doesn't give times.
Right. So that's
bad.
So, but you're arguing on the incorrect metrics, though.
No. You're arguing from Fib. You're arguing from a position of faith. And we don't
have faith in the evidence that's been revealed.
That's right. And the evidence has, and we're telling you that upon critical examination, it has not been revealed. So if you take faith out of the mix, that's what's missing. So no, we're not going to take it on faith because there's problems with faith. Faith is bad. Okay. So like belief without evidence is what we're talking about. Faith, not trust, not confidence, which are sliding scales based upon evidence and past experience, okay? Faith in and of itself doesn't work because, one, faith is essentially emotionally based. It's based on how you feel. You can have faith in a thing, and depending upon how you feel about that thing, that faith can diminish, it can go away, or it can improve. But that's totally based on emotion and not on evidence. Two, faith can be manipulated by external sources, and it can be manipulated without you knowing it, which is how cults are formed and people are drawn into cult behaviors like the new IFB or the Jim Jones cult or the Heaven's Gate cult, or the Prank
I don't know about these cults.
Okay, I mean they make the news.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it can be manipulated by external sources without you knowing it, which is how people get drawn into cults. Okay.
Yeah.
And 3, faith doesn't make any mechanistic explanations about anything, and it doesn't provide any further information about the world, about reality. It doesn't. It just simply says it is. It literally ceases inquiry. So no, faith doesn't work because, and also you can throw in a fourth thing. Your faith can be misplaced without you realizing it. Okay, when you just put belief into something with no evidence whatsoever to justify it, you can stick that thing in the wrong thing. All right, so faith can be misplaced. It can be manipulated by external sources without your knowledge. It doesn't provide any additional information or predictive information or mechanistic explanation about reality, and it's emotion based. When you have so many other tools that are better at determining things about reality, why would you ever rely on faith?
One, because I have trust in God, and 2, I mean, that's what we've been called to do, is to have faith in Christ.
That's fallacious because you assume that you have been called by God and not by other people telling you were called by God. How can you make the determination? How can you, where is the line? How can you say, this is what has happened and this is what is real and this is what is not as real? How are you making the determination between what is real and what is imaginary?
Well, so with the sciences, you can make the same argument with the sciences. You have people who have spent their whole lives believing they're correct and wanting to prove themselves correct. That they've come up with terms and terminology.
No. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of what. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of what science is.
And models.
Science goes for the explanations of things, like the best possible explanation of things given the evidence at hand.
Yeah.
And the objective of science is to tear down the current best explanation that we have and replace it with a better explanation. So when you come up with a theory that explains things, then the objective of everyone else in your field is to literally start trying to poke holes in that thing in order to tear it down and replace it with a better explanation.
That's because they believe they're right. That's what I'm saying. It's a group of people who've gathered together and somehow can work together while all believing that their individual heads are all correct.
No, they don't. It's not that they believe they're right. It's that given the evidence at hand, they have a very strong confidence. They are wholly confident that their explanation is the best explanation given the evidence at hand.
You can make the same argument for Christians.
No, because scientists don't claim that what they've explained is absolutely 100% true. That's why science allows for further information and further evidence in the future.
Well, listen to their actual experiences after being, changed by Christ. People want evidence for themselves, but there's a kind of like I've noticed a majority of people who want evidence for themselves haven't sought the evidence other than to dispute it.
Okay, so if I'm looking for evidence, no. If I'm looking for evidence for a thing and I don't find it, does that necessarily mean that I didn't want to find it? No, it doesn't. What it means is that I went looking for the evidence and the evidence wasn't there, and the evidence that I was presented was insufficient to support the claim.
Well, does this speak about like yourself? I don't know.
No. I can only speak to myself and my personal experience.
Well, I actually agree with what he said earlier. He said that like scientists try to debunk things. So if you present evidence, we're going to try to attack it and poke holes in it. And that's the correct intellectual way to do things. You shouldn't just accept it on faith. You should say, does this not make sense? Are there holes with this? And if there are, then you should reject it. So yes, I agree that what we do with evidence when you present it is try to take holes in it, because that's the intellectually honest way to do it. That's why science works, is that it tries to disprove things. It doesn't try to accept them because you believe them.
You guys even said so yourselves with reason, because they're using reasoning and metrics and whatever they can prove as logic. They're using reason as the main basis to some of these claims.
Yeah, so are we all?
You can reason anything.
So is everyone, because that's what we do as human beings.
Yeah, of course.
I want to go back to what because you touched on something that's really, really important there, and it's a really important distinction to make. You stated that we've already determined that if I go looking for evidence, and I don't find that evidence, then you asserted that I'm not wanting to find the evidence. But that's not necessarily true. It means that I didn't find the evidence where I was looking. So I will continue looking, hence why we still hold these stages. Okay? But I also determined that the evidence that I was previously given, because I was born and raised in the faith, I was confirmed Methodist. Okay? I was raised in the faith, and I determined, after critically analyzing the evidence I was given as a child, that the evidence was insufficient to warrant the claim as being true. So therefore, I then rejected the claim, went looking for further evidence, and my story of deacon, my deconversion story is like over a decade long. As I went hunting for this and came to the eventual conclusion, I am an atheist. Okay, because there's no evidence, or there's no sufficient evidence or good argumentation to support the claim. Now, what you are essentially skirting is that I need to believe first and then go looking for the evidence, and because I believe, I will find it. But there's no differentiation between that and confirmation bias.
There is.
That is a good point.
There is one question from somebody in the YouTube live chat. His name is Blastermaster80. It's 80. He's asking if what's the difference between having faith that something is true and pretending it is? That's a question for you, our guest.
Well, I guess pretending it is, I mean, you would have to. Okay, so is this like they're tricked into believing something's true, or is this like they can't confirm it, but they believe it wholeheartedly, so that they'll, because pretending means lying. Like it kind of assumes somebody's lying.
Okay, yeah, I guess sometimes that can get into some
like a Benny Hinn, like slapping people around and making them fall to the floor, even though that's scripturally unsound.
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on how people are reading the scripture too, right? So,
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for answering Blastermaster's 80s question.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but like,
do belief and trust mean the same thing to you?
Belief and trust?
Yeah, or faith and trust?
I guess they can go hand in hand. I mean, faith can go a little bit. I mean, it sounds like it could be the same thing, because trust could really depend on any sort of metric that you put in your head.
Well, I mean, that's why it's important that he brings it up, because there's a distinction to be made there. Especially if you're talking contextually with the Bible, then faith is talking about the belief in things unseen, the things that are hoped for. Okay, there's no justification for it. It's just something that you hope to come true, regardless of the circumstances, the current circumstances, or belief in things that you can't see. What they're essentially talking about in that context is that you have no evidence for. You can't justify it, but you still believe in it. And that's problematic, because trust and confidence are all about evidence. And there's, like I said,
thank you for the super chat.
I have very little trust in this because there is no evidence for me to have any trust in it. Like, a person is lied to me constantly.
Spitting fire.
I have no trust in what.
Give TJump your money. Love it, Jacob.
Yeah, but if all of a sudden that person starts telling me the truth, and they over time exhibit a pattern of behavior that is constantly that they're making an effort to change, and they start telling the truth, and they really, really put forth the effort, and my trust levels will improve slowly but surely over time. I'll know that person won't lie to me, because it's been demonstrated. So therefore, I have evidence to support my trust. I trust them because they won't lie to me. Same thing with confidence. I'm confident because the evidence susses this out. But like I said, it's a sliding scale. And so if all of a sudden I lose confidence because the evidence was shown to be incorrect, and so I no longer am warranted in putting confidence in this thing. If I did maintain that confidence in lieu of the evidence, then I would be just essentially being, well, I'm holding on to it because I want to. That's serving some psychological or physiological utility for me. That's intellectually dishonest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is. But if you were to take an actual instance where within, I guess, your sect of religion, and it was confirmed, and you weren't trying to confirm it or anything like that, like, because it even shows in scripture that Peter tried to stop the Romans, both while saying that Jesus shouldn't do what he was, what he knew was going to happen, and him trying to fight back the Romans. So, I mean, and there's even instances where it shows, the disciples were afraid. They had distrust. They didn't have 100% faith. Even one of the disciples who didn't even believe Jesus resurrected until he actually, Jesus revealed himself to him. So it's an understandable human commodity. I guess overall, I question what exactly is the metric that would sell you on any sort of God?
I'd have to agree with TJump on this. What he brings up all the time, novel testable predictions would be really, really good.
Yeah, novel. So prophecy, like
no
novel testable predictions.
Novel testable
Are these three
predictions.
separate things?
No. It's that was a segue intended for TJump to
what? so yeah, I think prophecy is a kind of novel testable prediction. So yeah, prophecy and predictions I think are like the same thing if they're precise. Yeah.
Okay,
and
so
testable and repeatable go into that in my eyes.
Well, okay, so what are the testable? You mean like somebody has witnessed it, or
well, testable just means like confirming the prediction. So like doesn't mean
confirmation within our timeline.
Yes.
And a part of that is also eliminating other possibilities.
Yeah.
So that's a part of that process, is eliminating the possibility of something else so it doesn't look like what you're trying to find.
Also, we brought up that there's a possibility that the other authors in the Bible and in extra-canonical sources don't even agree with this. Luke and Acts, which were written probably about 10 years after Matthew, do not mention the price. They say a price was agreed, but no price is specified.
Because that's their own testimony.
Right, but what you're saying is that the Bible should be enough evidence that this is the case, but even the Bible itself doesn't agree that this is the case. Furthermore, if we go to extra biblical sources, we find another source that claims it was 30 pieces of gold, right? So the criterion for why you're going to accept Matt and not Luke or the other source as evidence that it was not 30 pieces of silver seems like it's going to be pretty subjective. And there's reasons why, even if it gives the exact price, and even if it's agreed on in many places, as it's been already established. What?
I mean, who wrote that source?
The other one, I gave it out earlier. Let me find it again. But the point is, one of these was accepted into the canon, one of these wasn't, probably because they disagreed on this important fact, right? But they didn't have some like principle